We are live. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. Almost said Monday there. It's not. It's Tuesday. Welcome to the recording of the final On the Ball podcast of the season. It took a long time for StreamYard to get going there. So the deterioration of the live stream continues, as has been the case with my video verdicts. Let's not worry about that now. We are going to go live with the podcast very soon, which is exciting. I'm just going to share this on the usual spaces, as you know. I hope everyone's well. I hope you enjoy the pod. Please do get in contact with your questions, comments, whatever you want to say. We'll be delving into those. It's an absolute free-for-all. So say what you wish, and we will address as many and as much as we can, obviously. And of course, who have we got on tonight? Well, I can show you, can't I? There they are. Steve Sanders, Dan Brigham, looking smiley. I'm not going to unmute them, so they can't say anything. But they've got all their fun stuff to say. I think Steve was quite tempted to unmute himself there. They've got all their fun stuff that they're going to say, and they will be keeping an eye on your comments as well to bring those in. So that's great. We've got loads to talk about. Obviously, we'll wrap up the season. We're going to do some sort of awards. I don't know what the awards are. We haven't really figured them out, but we'll just come up with what the awards are. That's great. And all of the fun stuff. There is so much fun stuff to get through. One last bit of sharing, and then we will crack on. If you are here, why aren't you watching the Champions League semi-final? It's going to be a great game. Dan is nodding because that's where he wishes he was. So we'll just rattle through this. We'll give this the care and attention that Norwich City deserve right now. In fact, we'll give it more. And we'll have lots of fun as always. We've got a bit of a quiz from Ryan. Not a long one, but a great one. And Ryan's not here. How are we going to do that, I hear you ask? Just you wait. It will be lots of fun. A couple more bits. I hope you like the shirt, by the way. My Teemu Pukki Finland shirt. Right, that is all shared. I reckon we're good to go. So let's get good to go. Enjoy the pod. See you on the other side for the last time this season. Amazing. Hello all and welcome to edition 134 and the season finale of On the Ball. How does it end? We're about to find out. The hospital pass of the Norwich City podcast world. I'm Michael Bailey. I cover the Canaries for The Athletic, and I hope this finds you safe and well. On the way, one last time, Teemu Pukki baby, boo! And all the fun you would expect from our own mucking about on our own field of dreams. One last time, we will work through all that and more with our season finale guests, who are Norwich numberwang chief at NCFCnumbers, also known as our very own Steve Sanders, who has to unmute himself.
Good evening, Michael. Forgot I was doing that bit.
Yeah, I always forget that you have to do that as well. We also have joining us tonight, former Norwich City head of content and program editor. It is, you've got to unmute yourself as well, Daniel Brigham.
Good evening, Michael, and hello, Steve, and to everyone listening.
Joyous stuff. Thank you for joining us. We may be joined by others over the course of the evening. Who knows? Zoe, make friend of the pod. Zoe Morgan may well join us too. We shall see. She might be on a train. She might not manage it. She did give us some of her favorite moments of the season, so I will remember to say those before the pod is done tonight. And also, we should wish Zoe's dad a speedy recovery, because I think he's been unwell, but he will be fine. So a speedy recovery to Zoe's dad. Yeah, sending you all the Norwich City energy and love from On the Ball. Thanks for joining us, everyone. How are we all doing? Steve, how are you?
Very well. You sounded like you're about to close the podcast there with that long dramatic pause. Shall we just end it? I don't know whether we need to say any more on this season. No, I feel like people have turned up to watch, and good on them for doing that. There is quite a big football game going on at the moment, so why people would want to go over the wreckage of this season again, I don't know. But yeah, I think it'll be if not a celebration, then maybe like a wake for this season. I don't know. Although that would imply that we like who, that we're going to mourn it, which we're obviously not. So maybe just a wake for somebody, for an old relative who nobody.
What an analogy this is. Keep going, Steve.
That's
Just
all
for the audio listeners, I should say you are wearing your home Norwich City shirt, but you are wearing a black sort of cardigan over it to try and cover up as much of it as possible.
Yeah, that's the shame.
Dear.
Even though I'm here on my own, we've had some good outfits this season from a lot of the guests, and I very rarely make any effort. So I thought I would go to the effort of putting on a Norwich City shirt. So,
Well, I mean, who can
and
forget?
I assume the black jacket over the top of it is because it's funereal as well. And
yes,
we are in mourning for the season.
We are in mourning for this wonderful season, but the memories will last for a lifetime.
They will be etched on our heads. I mean, included in all the great outfits this season, of course, your Christmas tree with its blue lights. So shouldn't forget that either. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Michael. Good. I've just switched off the live feed of the Man City game, so I'm fully committed to maybe having sort of a cathartic chat, hopefully, about the season.
Have you paused it, or are you just going to have to return to it once?
No, it's gone. So yeah, I'm just going to be in the dark.
Excellent. Well, let's just try and get this over and done with as quickly as possible, shall we? Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks everyone out there for watching and listening. You can watch the podcast live on your chosen social media platform, as long as it's one of the ones we're broadcasting on live. And if you are, then we do want to hear from you over the course of the podcast. That can be on whatever you want from a Norwich City perspective. Ask questions of us if you so wish, or you can just tell us what you think. Either is good. Steve will be monitoring those over the course of the pod. If you want to contribute and you are listening in the future, then that's fine too. Send us an email to Twitterkers, Twitter, KERS, @icloud.com. Of course, it's worth bearing in mind, might take a while for us to get back to you in that instance, but we will read the email. Let that be known. Also, we've got, I mentioned it on last week's podcast. It finishes at 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday night. It is the auction for the signed Norwich City shirt. It's here. I showed it last week. It's got Teemu Pukki signature on it. There's also a signed Norwich City training EFL football that they used in training at Colney. I don't think that one is signed by Teemu Pukki because I couldn't find his signature on it. It has got Gabby Sarah's signature on it, and he's Player of the Year. So they are going, and that's all to raise money for little Tommy, who has been diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome, and it will take money to care for him in future and to give him the best possible life. So raising money for those. Leading bids at the moment, I think the ball is at £170 and the shirt is at £300, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Obviously, if you've heard that and gone, "Ha! I've got more money than that and I want those things," then just send me a direct message on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whichever. You just need to do so before 11:59 p.m. tonight. There will be a timestamp on it. I probably won't be awake, but then we'll sort that all out tomorrow. So good luck. Get your bids in if you wish. And it's a wonderful cause for little Tommy. That is all of our admin. We can't put it off any longer. Let's crack on with this week's, as he just tees up the clip. Headline act. Yes, it's over. Both Norwich City season and Teemu Pukki's Canaries career. I feel like we should pay tribute to Teemu first, if that's okay. So, Steve, how good has he really been? And where is his place in Norwich City history?
Oh, he's obviously massively overrated.
We didn't want him here for the last 6 months, so, you know.
Was I wrong? No, I think, I mean, I try and think back. I try not to have too much recency bias with this. Have we had a better striker than Teemu Pukki in the 20 years I've been watching? I don't think so. 88 goals, obviously, that stands on its own. But also, I think the intelligence, the the movement, the ability to play off the shoulder of the defender, the fact that he was never offside, hardly ever offside, playing the way that he did, and just the impact. Obviously, kind of a lot of the stats that I put out over the weekend hopefully gave an indication of what he did over his 5 seasons. Obviously, the initial 29 goal season was incredible. We probably will never see the like of that again. But equally, he scored something like 40% of our goals in our 2 Premier League seasons, which as well, incredible. I think, the 2 seasons he had in terms of contributions by an individual player over the last 5 seasons were first and third of all Premier League clubs. So like, his impact was amazing. But the other thing was, just another thing that I pulled out in that thread, he was almost always available as well. Like the run when we were so incredible in that first season, he was on the pitch for 82 goals in a row in all competitions, which for a centre forward is amazing because they so regularly get subbed off or rested. He was always available, and we only scored when he played. So I mean, there's so many things that you could say about his impact, really. But yeah, I think obviously it's going to leave a hole. And what was it yesterday? Yesterday was incredibly sad, and it felt like the end of an era. But I think there's been talk about 5 legendary players who should be on the, what is it, like a.
Oh yes, the new banner that's going to replace. Well, there's 2 spaces, aren't there? I think on the south stand, where Gabby Sarah and Andrew Bamadelli are stood resplendent right now. Obviously, they might get sold. So quick, we need new banner. Let's do a Legends banner because they won't be sold. Yeah, I don't know who are the. You can vote for anyone on that, but are there? Can you?
I'm not sure. Dan's nodding.
You could, you could write. It wasn't a tick box. You could just write whoever you wanted on there. I think, it had to be a former player now, which obviously Teemu sadly is.
Well, I'm picking Teemu as definitely one of my 5.
It's interesting because I Oh yeah, so 5 spaces. I've got it. So I did a interview with a Swedish that would have been strange, a Finnish newspaper.
I've forgotten where he comes from already.
A Finnish. By the way, I don't think Finland is in Scandinavia, so
it's not.
David Wagner does need to keep calling him Scandinavian, although I suppose he will now because he's left. Yeah, I did an interview with a Finnish newspaper, which was so lovely. I've sort of sat in the city stand at Carrow Road, just finished the press stuff and did that quickly with them. And I read it back today because he sent me it, and I translated it from Finnish. And I was a line at the end where it was obviously me quoted, where I had said I was struggling to think of a more influential player in Norwich City's history. And I thought, I feel like that's probably a bit overblown. I've got a bit carried away there. But then I suppose, then maybe there are some, but it would take a lot to be more impactful than Teemu, wouldn't it, Dan? I mean, I suppose it wasn't just him either. It was obviously Emmy had a really big impact, but then maybe for a shorter period. Like Steve said, with all the numbers there, his contribution to 2 Premier League seasons, and Norwich have only had a handful as it is, and then getting them to 2 titles, which they haven't done in quick succession, I don't think, in their history. Maybe I was right. Maybe. Yeah,
I mean, he's certainly got to be up there in the conversation, hasn't he? So, I guess Dave Stringer for long-lasting impact as a player with promotion.
That was the one that came manager into my head. I was like, well, Dave Stringer though.
Huckabee as well, but he only managed it once, one promotion with us as well. So yeah, I mean, he's got to be up there in the conversation, especially as someone who was bought as a free, very famously was bought as an attacking midfielder as well. To then suddenly turn into Norwich City's 4th all-time highest goal scorer is just an incredible legacy as well. And obviously quite a sad way for him to depart. Not many footballers get the opportunity to depart on a high, unfortunately. But I'll just always remember him as the striker who could make the difficult look really simple. Scoring goals is really, really difficult. Lots of players can do all the good build-up work. There are very few whose main skill is finding the space and the movement to be in the right place at the right time. And even when he was scoring lots of goals for us, it's fair to say that he was also missing quite a few opportunities for us. But that's solely down to the fact he would be in the right place at the right time at nearly all of the time. And that's not to downplay the rest of his impact. You know, he harried really well. His build-up play was good, etc. There's a reason he's brought in as an attacking midfielder, because his build-up play is really good. But I would also say it's quite rare for the Championship as well, which I think maybe we've seen this season. We've been trying to play a style that suits a different kind of classic champion, bit more of a classic Championship striker. The Championship won't have seen many strikers like Teemu Pukki, who's not the biggest guy, wasn't going to hold the ball up as well as, you know, a Ewan Roberts did or a Grant Holt did. But what he would do is have that predatory sort of Premier League instinct to play off the shoulder of defenders and find space that most other strikers couldn't at Championship level. And Steve, that's absolutely right. I've never thought about it. The fact he was barely ever offside is extraordinary, because all of his game is about that sort of one split-second decision to when to make the run and when to not make the run. For me, he is top 3 strikers of my 30 years of watching Norwich City, up there with Grant Holt and Chris Sutton, I think. And I don't think anyone else really gets close to those 3 in that time.
I love that. I'm going to use the podcast to say the things I forgot to say in my video verdict on last night, because there were 1 or 2. One of which was Teemu did miss some chances yesterday, and I know he wanted the goal really, really, hugely. And everyone seemed to be trying to make that happen. And he himself admitted he probably was trying too hard to do it. But maybe that was slightly symptomatic of what it's been like the last 6 months, sadly. And we can't really get away from that. It has been like months since he scored at Carrow Road, hasn't it? Well, in fairness, Norwich haven't scored themselves at Carrow Road for about 9 hours now. So
September was his last goal at Carrow Road, I think.
Yeah, there was a great moment in this. A great moment. I say great. I don't mean great, but it was a great moment in the second half where Adam Eden was breaking through. Teemu Pukki had to make the same run 3 times because Adam couldn't find the pass to play him in. And then I think something happened and it just didn't happen. I was like, literally, Emi Buendia has played that pass for like 5 times in the time it's taken you to try the first one. Never mind not doing it twice. No slight on Adam, but just where they were. Yes,
just a couple. Well, I mean, you've sort of referenced them both really between you, but I guess when the really legendary players leave, you kind of think, I don't know. I sort of almost think like, what are they? What will I remember them for? And what are the things that they've produced or have happened with them that may never happen again in my lifetime? And I think that I suppose 2 things really stand out: the transfer, which Dan mentioned, and the fact that he came in. Basically, I mean, I know he was first team when he came in, but as Dan said, he came in as an attacking midfielder, and he was the best player in the entire division and broke our goal scoring record in one season. Now, I cannot believe that we will ever have a transfer of a player who has come in with no fanfare. Like, I think I was probably calling him Teemu Pukki at that when he signed. Didn't know who he was beyond the fact he played for Celtic a bit and was Finnish. And for him to come and have that level of impact. Emi was slightly different because I think there was a little bit of buzz around Emi before he started, but Pukki was literally signed as someone who had kind of played at the top level and not really done anything. And I don't think there were any expectations there on a free. And the impact that he then had. And then the other thing is his partnership with Emi. And I don't know whether we will have 2 players, people talk about Wes and Holty, but I don't know whether we'll ever have 2 players that dovetail and suit each other's game as perfectly as those 2 did. Emi set him up 16 times, watched a lot of those goals back there. Very, very similar, lots of slide through passes. And yeah, I think when I think back to Teemu in 20, 30 years, those will be 2 of the things that I remember most.
It was there is a piece on The Athletic from last week with tributes, or just Daniel Farke, Emi Buendia, Christoph Zimmermann, and Paul Warne talking about Teemu Pukki. It said a lot that those guys wanted to talk to me about him. Paul's was kind of a bit left field, I suppose, inclusion, but it brought a really lovely context to what Teemu actually delivered. And obviously Paul Warne is a Norwich fan, so and enough of a Norwich fan to talk about it as a Norwich fan, which I still find strange because, he's an actual elite football manager, although do feel for him after Derby missed out on the playoffs the other night, which is obviously tough. So give that a read, because I think, and like you, Steve, watching those goals and that connection between Emi and Teemu is obviously something incredibly special that we all enjoyed at the time. And I remember when he was signed, because that summer, you're right, there was a lot of buzz around Emmy signing. And I think they, even before I found his name out, which I tried really hard to find out, I knew that there was this La Liga player and it was La Liga 2, although he was with Getafe. But anyway, La Liga player that they were genuinely really, really excited about. Whereas Teemu I ran the Holcomb 10K. It was a burning summer day. And literally, I got to the finish line, and this signing was announced that no one had heard of. I think they kept it incredibly tight because they just didn't want it to get out. And yeah, it was like just completely under the radar, and then off you go. And the one, if you can just indulge me for a second, the one thing I probably feel quite a connection with Teemu, because within 2 weeks of being at the Athletic, it's the second game working for the company. Teemu scores his first goal against Newcastle, and my editor says, we have to do something on Teemu's background. Now he's a Premier League goal scorer. Find out who he is. You have to go to Finland at some point. He then scored his second goal, and he said, I do actually think you're going to need to go to Finland quite, probably soon. We have to sort that. Then he's got the hat trick, and he was like, right, you're going to Finland this week. I was like, what? I don't even know anyone in Finland. I don't know where he's from. And having then, spent that week trying to work out how to get there, being there, speaking to people and putting together stories, just it was a very satisfying career moment. But it was just I think, said a lot about where Teemu would come from and just this clamour in the Premier League for people to find out about him. And it was probably that the first time, and maybe the last time, there was real interest across the country from something to do with Norwich City, other than how they'd sort of got it. It was really like, who is this bloke? And to score a hat trick in the Premier League, it was like 26 years the last time Norwich had done it, or a Norwich player had done it. So, yes, special as was it all. Maybe not so much the scenes, but anyway.
I was just going to ask you both if you had a favourite game or goal of Teemu's, if there's anything that particularly stands out from 5 years. Dan, don't know if there's anything for you.
Yeah, I think. Because I think this is a goal. It's not his best goal. It's not his most famous goal, but I think it sums him up. Is his goal at Ellen Road in the 3-1 win, which obviously was the biggest game of that season in 18-19. And I was there, and nearly everyone in the away end didn't realise it was a goal. Everyone thought it was either going out for a corner or someone was offside, and then suddenly Teemu's wheeling away celebrating. But because it wasn't showy, people didn't realise it happened. It felt sort of innocuous in some ways. It felt like a very sort of Teemu Pukki style goal. He just did his job. When everyone else switched off, he did his job. He was in the right place when Pontus Jansson left him. Teemu Pukki just stayed there, knowing this will probably be where the ball came. And that's where the ball came. And he scored it, as he often did, scored in against the really big teams, in whichever division he was in. And was, again, in the right place at the right time. Love
that. As I mentioned in my video verdict, his first goal against Preston, I remember seeing it on his left foot. Such a precise, pure finish. Just thinking, wow, that's a proper finish there.
Were you right behind that in the press box? You must have been sort of.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and then there's also an angle from behind the shot as well, or in front of the shot, I think. And it's just something about it. And, you could probably have brushed it under the carpet had he have not, scored ever again. But the fact that he then showed he had that ability was there for us all to see. Emi Buendia mentioned Teemu's goal at Stoke in the second championship season, which is a brilliant goal. And I think that said a lot about both of them. I'm glad that Teemu got to talk about his goal at Old Trafford, because I thought that was a really good one as well. And also the goal that should have stood against Spurs, which also still riles me. And I think that season, Norwich drew at Leicester, and Tom Tribal won the ball in midfield brilliantly, played a quick ball through between the lines to Emi Buendia, who played a perfectly weighted through ball to Teemu, one touch, slots it into the far corner past Kasper Schmeichel. And you're like, that should have been something they were capable of more often that year. And there were times when I think they were a much better side than last season. So sorry, all my screens have just gone off and I don't know. Right, there we go. All my screens just went off and I was in the dark, but you can still hear me.
It's funny.
Teemu.
It's funny you
Teemu. Ooh. Anyway, carry on.
Funny you mentioned Leicester there, because Emmy and Teemu always reminded me of Mahrez and Vardy when Leicester won the title. Just Vardy playing off the shoulder and Mahrez coming in off the right and finding those little through balls, sort of thriving off that. And I've said this before in the podcast, but after our first season in the Premier League when we were relegated, I'm amazed someone like Leicester didn't come in for him when he was, 31 at the time. Still had probably 3 seasons left at Premier League level. I was absolutely amazed of all of our players that season, including our young players who we did sell, that no one came in for him, because he proved in a side that was really struggling, he could score goals in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do we think Teemu drinks Skittle vodka as well? Do you think that's part of his diet, the Vardy style?
Yeah, without the Skittles. So that's okay. Yeah, Steve, you did a brilliant thread on all of Teemu's amazing stats, so people should look at that on Twitter. Where do we want to, or will we see him rock up, do we reckon? It's an interesting question. Where's he going to go next? He's going to take a holiday. I don't think he's that. He certainly hasn't decided yet. So,
I mean, is Mönchengladbach a realistic option?
I'd be lying if I said I didn't ask Daniel that when I spoke to him, and he just didn't answer. So maybe, who knows? I think that would be a great shot. But
yeah, just somewhere where a team is set up to score, to set up strikers like him would be great, and he's happy and he's smiling again. I would my hunch is the MLS. I think he's probably quite keen on a stint in the States before settling back in Finland. But wherever he goes, I just want him to see him happy for the last 2, 3, 4 years of his career.
Well said. And that would be lovely. We'll see where he ends up. And obviously he's got stuff to do with Finland as well, which is very exciting for him. I mean, the scenes, they were there. There were some great moments, obviously. It was noticeable, though, that within 5 to 10 seconds of him walking off the pitch, it just went to, and I mean, if we just now sort of turn it away from Teemu to what he's leaving behind.
Oh God.
I don't really know what to do with it. Now, I mean, the mitigation is that it is an absolute shower at the moment. I guess the players were all like, well, who knows if he'll still be here. I guess David Wagner's basically said, I don't even know if I want any of you, maybe like 6. And so they're going to do all this rebuild, but they're going to have to sell people to fund this rebuild. The football was a bit all over the place. Norwich did create chances, but I mean, they also played with basically a rest defense of 2 people. And they lost 1-0 to a side that have already been relegated to League One, who had even less to play for. If they don't get this summer right, they where are they? Oh yeah. What do we say? Yeah.
For the listeners there, Michael sort of paused with his head in his hands in the middle of that question, just out of total exasperation. I think
it's been a long 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. Remember, like I was saying this to Ben during the game yesterday, Milot Rashica was playing for us at the start of the season, which seems weird. Teemu was kind of like a one-man human shield, really, for the abuse that I think the board and Stuart Webber and maybe David Wagner would have got. So I think he was quite a welcome distraction on the day.
And also, by the way, he asked to come off with 10 minutes to go. So they were probably willing to keep him there for as long as possible.
I think that was what they would have liked.
He had to ask to come off, and then within 10 seconds, they were singing about Stuart Webber.
I mean, to be honest, though, the sort of most quietly devastating chant of all was the Farkas on a horse one, which just, like, I don't know, I just felt really sad. I mean, they went more Route 1 at Stuart Webber after that, it must be said. But it really, I think it just hit home, like, how great that season was and how far we've fallen in the space of just 4 years. I mean, it was another pretty lame. I mean, we've seen this. It's reading from the same playbook. They were quite good for the first 10-15 minutes, conceded a dreadfully simple goal, and then just didn't bounce back against, you know, Blackpool were not bad for a team that went down, but they didn't look anything special. We had 28 shots in the game, which seems absolutely insane, although a lot of them must have been from like 30 yards.
Who did?
Norwich had 28 shots in that game. That's weird. Yeah. Teemu had 8. I don't think he's ever had as many without scoring before, which I think mostly just out of sheer desperation. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what more we can say about this team and the direction that they seem to be heading in. Basically, the break cannot. Thank God it's here, really, because I don't think we can take much more of this, really.
Dan, anything to add?
Oh no, no, not certainly not about the game. No, utterly uninterested. I was as uninterested as the players seem to be. Well, the Norwich players anyway. Blackpool players seem to be significantly more interested in it than we were. It wasn't. It's all about the next few months now, isn't it? It's the next 2 months. Absolutely critical to get right once again. And we've been here a lot of times. We need it's a sliding doors moment this summer, isn't it? Get it right, and we've still got the bones of a squad and the attraction of a very good training ground, and still one of the bigger clubs in the Championship, despite who might come down this season. So we've still got the ability to look forward with positivity next season, but we've also very much could look forward with a lot of negativity as well if they do get the recruitment wrong. And James Husband coming on for Blackpool really was a reminder of how wrong recruitment can go under the current regime, as it has under every regime at some point for a club of our size. So yeah, it's sliding doors moment, and I'm sure we'll get on to talking about the summer at some point.
Although Husband may have been the best left back on the pitch yesterday, given he was up against McCallum and Yanulis, neither of whom covered themselves in a lot of glory, didn't they?
Savage.
Well,
Savage.
They did. The other thing, and yeah, let's not pick over the bones of it too much, but the thing that worries me tactically about Wagner is when he's been successful before, his teams have employed quite a ruthless high press and made it very difficult for teams to play. That was what his Huddersfield team were like. From memory, I don't have any the kind of figures to back that up. But and it seems like we're sort of setting up to play that way, but the only thing we're missing is doing the actual pressing bit. So teams just play through and are at our back foot. Even, you know, a team like Blackpool, who with the greatest respect have gone down, were just able to get our back foot with such ease. And I don't think that, I mean, I don't know. Is it a personnel thing? Are they not being drilled properly? Do they not have the energy to do it? It just seems like we're setting up to, it's not like Dean Smith where it's like, I can't work out the game plan. I sort of can see a game plan, but it's just not being executed at all.
I have a view on this. It might be wrong and it might be unfair. But I feel like, having listened to people and spoken to people and reading between some lines, that there was the initial impact that was really promising from David Wagner. Then he sort of got stuck into what he wanted them to do and how he wanted them to set up. It wasn't really working. And I don't know how much the players were really, enjoying, grabbing it. So I think we've then ended up in a situation where either they don't want to, or they can't really do it, or the mood wasn't right for them to do it. So now it's like, we need to change this and we need players who can. So it all comes down to now whether Norwich can bring in a load of players that will do what David Wagner wants and can physically do it, I think, which I think is why we went so quickly from, let's keep going, to, no, everyone's got to go. Change. I think that's just my view. Obviously, always open to alternatives, more accurate views if there are some.
Well, I think you're right, but there's two significant concerns about that, isn't there? A, we've won 1 in 11, so should we be trusting a manager to get it right? This preseason is going to have to be the Beatles, the Spielberg of preseasons.
The Spielberg of a Spiel. No, it doesn't work. Okay.
And if he does get it right, or rather, the recruitment's got to be so uniquely sort of structured to get the players in that Wagner needs to make his system, his pressing system, work. And if it does work, there's still a concern that, if it doesn't work, there's two concerns. We're rubbish, but also we then are left in a position where we have to bring in another pressing coach, or we change again and change the recruitment again. And I said this on the last time I was on the podcast, but so either we just absolutely embrace the fact that we are now going to recruit players who are excellent at pressing, work within that system, sort of really quick counterattacks, work well through transitions, etc. And this is what we're going to be now for the next 5, 6, 7 years, however well it goes with Wagner or not. This is what happens. We've got to stick to the philosophy, or either that we just get rid of the Band-Aid, get rid of Wagner and set up again. But whatever we do, we have to stick to the same way of playing over the next sort of iterations of managers, because we've not done that from Farke to Smith to Wagner. We've not done the one thing that the sporting director is there to implement, and that's consistency of head coach. And that's got to start now. Otherwise, even if we're successful next season, we'll find ourselves having this same conversation in 3 years, 2 years, 4 years' time. It'll just repeat itself unless we set up to back the same kind of philosophy throughout the club.
Speaking of the sporting director, there was supposed to be a protest at 2 p.m. outside the director's entrance. I don't think anyone bothered really turning up.
You were going to lead it, weren't you?
Oh yeah, that was the joke. Yeah, I had things to do. But the 90 minutes of football inspired them to try again. So they loitered and did it at full time. And there were probably about 50 people out there, probably, maybe like only 20 of them being vocal, but there were certainly people stood there. They brought a bed sheet. I didn't really see what it said on it, but they did sing about the fact that they'd brought their bed sheet, which I thought was a useful piece of humor. So it all seemed very tame, but that's probably because no board directors actually walked out in front of them, which might have been a sensible idea. Obviously, it's to have that going on at the final home game of the season and the final game of the season, and the players all being booed at full time, and it's not ideal progress or ideal situation to build off. Stuart Webber will be speaking to the local media. I have received the email, so I assume I'm invited. That will be in a couple of weeks' time. So
how many questions are you allowed to ask?
I will assume this time I won't listen to anyone and just assume I can ask however many I want, obviously in an order. We'll see how it pans out. I don't know anything about it. The fact that it's in a couple of weeks' time tells me that they're hoping that there will be some good news before we then get to talk about everything, because then it would obviously be churlish to talk about the past when the future is so exciting. That's how these football narratives work. So I will obviously endeavour to also ask questions about the past, but providing I'm still allowed in. Maybe I am currently eroding my chances of going by talking about it now. Who knows?
But your questions might be vetted before you enter the building.
Well, I'll make sure everyone knows that if that happens. Don't worry. I will be planning to ask questions as normal, but that will be. It's a really interesting moment. I'm sure Stuart Webber will do in-house media as well, and he'll do loads. I don't know. I'm guessing he'll do everyone. They'll probably do media before they do the media, so do the in-house stuff out first. Maybe I don't know, but it will just be very interesting how it all plays out. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
One possible positive, one positive say is that they do seem to be addressing the fact that there needs to be a change. Like, stuff is happening now; it's not happening a month from now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't happen a month from now anyway because I want to be on holiday. But I feel like things are there. There is a recognition that things need to happen. And I should probably ask the question, just because I've been asked it a couple of times over the last few days, if I would know. I presume we are setting up for both Wagner and Webber to be here at the beginning of next season. Next time we do a podcast, the two of them will both still be in position. Do we think that's what's going to happen? Obviously, who knows, but it's looking likely, right?
Yes, I would say I would be. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe after the Swansea game, I was a bit like, is Stuart especially going to hang around for this? But I think now it seems very secure that Stuart Webber will still be at the club come the end of the next transfer window, for example. And in those circumstances, given David Wagner hasn't had a preseason, I think they'll be in a position where they just assume that David Wagner will get a full preseason, work them hard, and then they'll get a proper go at it. So, yeah, that would be my answer to that. Do
you think, Michael, that Wagner should have a pre-season after that sort of run of defeats? Because if I cast my mind back, and obviously Farke had 10 defeats in a row at the end of the Premier League season, but A, that was the Premier League, and B, it was in lockdown, which none of us had ever experienced before, whereas this is in the Championship, a division we should rightly expect to have done much better in.
One of the things at the moment issues I have is I don't know what the expectations are. Like I don't see this as the same sort of building block as Daniel Farke's first season. Personally, I think they're in much worse shape, and there's too many downward forces at the moment. Whereas I felt like even though Daniel Farke was working through a first season, the forces were still kind of, there was enough new stuff to kind of pull them up a bit. Although losing 5-1 at Sheffield Wednesday probably wasn't ideal, and selling James Maddison. And I remember saying, actually, if you sell James Maddison and Josh Murphy, you need to make signings that will replace. You need to get that spot on, because if you take out those goals from the team and don't replace them properly, you'll be in a relegation scrap. So they did, because they signed Emmy, Kenny McLean, Teemu Pukki, Tim Krul, and they did do that. So that's the sort of thing they've got to do this time, really, if they want. They've got to get it right. There are huge question marks over what they've done, and also the fact that this David Wagner, is he capable of doing what he's done before? It's all very well saying it happened like this at Huddersfield, but that's a long time ago, and he's had jobs since then, and it's been difficult for him. So I think there's a massive question mark, but I think there is mitigation in that he clearly doesn't think this squad is capable of doing what he wants, and he wants to change it all. So you kind of have to stick or twist. I can understand why people at the club would feel that he deserves that, but you're kind of damned if you do or damned if you don't. The issues are kind of a bit greater than that. And that's why, to me, the expectation now is a couple of seasons of just trying to consolidate and gain some positive momentum into whatever you are trying to build. I just don't think a promotion challenge next year should be expected. It could happen, but it should be literally treated as a surprise if it does. So that's where I'm at. And that's obviously quite a tough sell. So there we go, but I'm not selling it. So, but one thing you do need to do is make sure everyone enjoys it and feels that it's worth them being season ticket holders. And I would like to know how many of the current season ticket base have felt it was worth it these last 2 years, even just from an enjoyment perspective, maybe an engagement perspective as well. Right, how about the things we are not going to talk about? Let's rattle through some of these. 42 minutes. Oh my Lord, let's do this quickly then. We've got so much still to go through. Norwich finished 13th in the table. Bottom half of the table. We're not going to talk about that. Gabriel Sara was player of the season, obviously. Did we know that already? I don't think we did. He was player of the season. Kenny McLean second, and Max Aarons third. No Anel, no Angus in the top three.
Feels about right to me, I think.
Yeah,
I think I said Penny last week, but I have no objections, Sarah. I think he has been the best player over the last 2-3 months.
Marquinhos has left. He left early. That was a good loan, wasn't it? But he has been called up for Brazil under 20s. So there we go. I'm still getting asked questions about Aaron Ramsey. I was like, honestly, if I've written it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm sure I've said it on here. Like,
what questions are you getting asked about Aaron Ramsey?
Why did he go? And why has he got a beef? And who's Marquinhos? Anyway, Kieran Dowell has gone. Sam Byram has gone. Daniel Sinani has gone. Michael McGovern has gone. Isaac Hayden has gone. And Josh Martin has gone, who popped up in one of the goals I was watching that Emmy and Teemu scored. I think it was Teemu's 50th goal. Any of those you want to talk about specifically?
Surely Dan surely wants to talk about Michael McGovern.
Well,
what a guy, though.
What a guy. I mean, I worked at the club for a few, and he was just the loveliest man, as everyone says. I was a bit surprised. I thought he might be getting ready to sort of take on a goalkeeping coaching role at the club, because he would travel to Norwich's away games. He was heavily involved in the pre-match coaching with Krul and Gunn. So I was a bit sad to see him not sort of stay on in the coaching capacity, but maybe he wants to do something else. Just to have a third goalkeeper with that kind of experience was just obviously great to have around the dressing room as well. I just wonder how that's going to look next season in terms of goalkeepers, because there's a hole to fill now there, isn't there? And it seems like Krul is staying by the sounds of it, and so interesting to see what happens with the goalkeeping next season. But yeah, very sad to see Mickey McGovern leave.
I must admit, Tim was someone I thought might be going, but now, yeah, like you, really, I sense that he will be going nowhere. So that's all good. I like Tim.
Do you see a way he might be our number one next season? Because obviously Angus Gunn is a bit more of a sellable asset now.
Well, as I've said, like Norwich want to sell to create this big rebuild. They can't pick and choose who other teams and other clubs think are valuable. It's all very well going, oh, we'll sell him for 20 million quid. I mean, there are no that performance on Monday, whatever day it was, did nothing for any player on the pitch. The best thing that happened probably was Gabby Sarah picking up Player of the Season award, because people will just go, oh, he was Player of the Season, so he must have done well. The lazy recruiters, of which there are still some. So, yes. Sam Byram's a lovely guy. I got to speak to him a few times. I know that he's had a really tough time with injuries and everything, and that's such a shame, because I think he always looked more than good enough when he played. So I hope whatever's next for Sam is good, because I feel like he deserves that. Yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say. Steve, anything you want to say about anyone?
Well, just that Byram's had such a tough time here, in that whenever he's played, we've always been really terrible, except for that Man City game, which I think he made his debut in, possibly, when we won 3-2. Just the rest of the time, and through really no fault of his own, I would say he's been a perfectly serviceable player for us, but always seems to play in the midst of a dreadful run. So I kind of feel bad for him. And like you say, hope he gets a good move next up. We did Dowell last week, didn't we?
Yeah,
and the rest of them feel like they don't really merit further mention. No offense.
Ballymumba is a champion of League One. I did afford a slight snigger that Ipswich didn't make 100 points and 100 goals. Hope that's allowed. Just to bring everyone up to date, looks like Southampton are getting relegated, so probably have to go to Southampton next season. Not sure who with. Probably Leeds, probably Leicester, and then would they keep Dean Smith?
It's not looking good for Dino and Shaky, is it?
No, I don't think they're going to keep them up.
Real shame, that, isn't it? I watched the Forest Southampton game last night, and other than it being quite an enjoyable game of football, my biggest takeaway was there's probably, despite Southampton being firmly at the bottom of the table now, there's no one in that Norwich side apart from Sarah that would probably get into that team, which kind of shows how far we've fallen. But that is in just 12 months or 18 months.
That is the gap between the top two divisions as well. It is huge. Which brings me nicely on to the playoff lineup in the Championship, which is Luton, Middlesbrough, Coventry, and Sunderland. Good Lord. I mean, they've all done incredibly well. I expect Mark Robbins at Coventry, just an incredible job. Tony Mowbray at Sunderland as well. I mean, I was really impressed with them when they came to Carrow Road. Luton, they beat Norwich twice comfortably. Well, it felt comfortably anyway, at least in terms of, letting Norwich do what they do and then just beating them. But I mean, Middlesbrough are the only lot out of that would even stand a remote chance of doing anything in the Premier League, it feels like. And even then, they're probably miles off it.
Yeah.
So anyway, good luck, guys.
I mean, the other, I would love to see Luton and, more pertinently, Kenilworth Road in the Premier League. That would be amazing. But the other thing is Sunderland got there with 69 points and Derby did not get in the League One playoffs with 76 points, which just shows you how, I don't know, beyond the top 3 or 4, just how kind of average the teams up there have been this season. I remember, Michael, you saying early on in the season, Norwich will have to be really bad. Can't believe they're not going to get in the top 6 this season. They'd have to really mess it up. And how right you were.
Yeah. That would have been in my prediction, where I think probably said they would finish 5th. And that was me being politically correct, because I did really struggle to see them. I thought 8th would probably be about right. Even that would have been optimistic.
You didn't commit,
five
did you?
places. 5 places. What are they doing? Literally, what have they done for a whole season? Unbelievable. Anyway,
a little word
oh,
for
sorry.
my first Norwich City hero, Mark Robbins, who I think is should be Championship Manager of the season for the job he's done at Coventry City in such difficult circumstances. I mean, they didn't play a home game for the first 6 weeks, did they? Because of issues with their ground. I mean, it'd just be great if he manages to get them up.
What would be unbelievable. And Paddy Davitt would be bouncing off the ceilings as well. Good old Pad. I reckon he'll be booking his trip to Wembley, hopefully. What else was I going to say there? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, no. Has it ever been as low as 69 points to get in the top 6? I mean, I've done the stories about what the averages were, and I'm pretty sure it was, I can't remember it being lower than 70.
When Wagner came in, I checked that, and it has been a couple of times into the last 12 seasons. I think it's been less than 70.
That low?
A couple of times.
Less than 70. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Oh, not that special then. Take it all back. It's just an average championship season.
Oh no, it is below average. It's normally like 75 points plus, but yeah, it has happened a couple of times.
Reading, Blackpool, and Wigan relegated. Poor Reading. Looking ahead to the summer, obviously links with Ashley Barnes. Yeah, I think everyone. Well, I felt like loads of people knew that before it actually became public knowledge. But there we go. Then it became public knowledge. So there we are. Yeah, we'll see. I don't. Maybe.
Don't mind it.
Maybe that will be announced just before we get to speak to Stuart Webber. I mean, who knows? And there we go. That's all. Anything else anyone does want to talk about?
I think you've actually covered literally everything on my list.
Everything in the world. Well, we're almost an hour done and we're halfway through the podcast. So that's all great. Any topics and comments from the viewers who might still be watching?
Oh, geez.
They're going to miss the whole match at this rate.
A couple of things quickly on Teemu. Chris Scal says Teemu's been the best striker in my lifetime. And we don't know how old Chris is.
Chris is 112.
Might be 10 years old. But and Dan Copping says the huge shame is so many of Teemu's goals came in the ghost season. The COVID one, presumably none of these stick in the memory as we weren't there to celebrate in the grounds. That's a reasonable point. Slightly sad one. James Hotchkiss asks, have Leicester hosted an evening with Teemu and Shaky yet? And Jeff Man 98 says that Mickey McGovern deserves to be on a Legends banner. And finally, Stephen Simons, I think referring to the prize of the ball shirt for £400 you can buy the current squad. So there you go.
I feel like I'd have to ask for their permission.
Yeah. But, loads of good questions, but I feel like if we open the floor to more questions, then we could literally be here all
I'll tell you what, let's rattle through the last bit. Keep a couple of the questions. It'd be good to just get through a couple of questions if they're on things we haven't spoken about. Let's move on to this.
This is almost fantasy football.
Rather than looking forward, we're going to look back in this John Watson section, which is our end of season awards. I did a piece today, which was a season review, which had some funny thing. Well, no, they weren't that funny, but it was some stuff on the season in categories, which tends to be how our season review works. So that could be a good starting point, obviously. But I don't know if we had any of these awards we wanted to share. One of them was funniest moment that I did. I went along the line of Norwich's defending, because we either laugh or cry at it, and. Like the opening goal at Hull at the start of the season where Max Aaron's clearance against, was it Grant Hanley? I can't remember.
That was
Mamadeli.
I think it was on
Mamadeli, wasn't it? Yeah.
It did really got better than there.
Funniest moment for me was Huddersfield away in the 1-1, which was your classic good first half, miserable second half. Was Grant Hanley lightening up the gloom by rugby tackling Keith Stroud as he was trying to get back to cover in defence. Properly took him out. Which probably contributed to Marquinhos, unfortunately, getting sent off just after that, because Stroud was probably dazed.
That is a great show. I forgot about that one.
I really hope Grant did that on purpose as well.
I reckon so. I reckon he absolutely did. Another one I had was Unsung Hero, which I just come up with just for the podcast. I was going to give that to the groundsman because the pitch did look immaculate. I mean, these are the sort of things you take in a season like this. The pitch did look immaculate. Oh, do you remember what I was saying as well about the the really special goal being a real highlight of a really mediocre season? That has happened, doesn't it?
Are you coming round to the Nunez goal as goal of the season ahead of Sarah?
No.
Then, Michael?
No,
Who's
I've
still saying
doubled
Sarah?
down. It's still Sarah.
Nothing but stubborn there, Michael.
I saw a League Two player score the same goal. It's like, oh well, it's not that special, is it? I haven't seen a League Two player score. Sarah's goal was Premier
Which
League.
League Two player scored that goal?
It was in the same. It was in
Gonna need
another. You have
names.
to go back to the other podcast. I can't remember. Someone at Northampton, I think.
Okay, so
I would have said at the time, but I can't remember now. It's 2 months ago.
Dan, you have the deciding vote on this one, I think. Nunez or Sarah goal.
You can appreciate Sarah's goal, but I reckon someone scores that a good 4 times out of 10. I reckon Nunez gets scored 1 out of 10 at best. So I'm going to go with Nunez as the best
There we
goal
go.
of the season.
We have a winner.
No, it's an argument I will always lose because I'm not on the populist side, but that's okay.
Sure.
Moment that will never leave you award. I thought that. I mean, I didn't come up with one because they've all left me.
Yeah, I mean the entire season is. John Hare like singing us out on the podcast. That was that'll never leave me as he had his get the guitar moment. That was a definite highlight.
That was a good one. I mean, it's so. I do feel a bit like Marcelino was really there in those first few games. It was like, look at what we've got here, and I know he's a young kid, and there could be reasons for that, but I do find it quite sad that it's just been so plateaued since. Well, that's not because
a bit of hope for next season, I suppose. It took Vrancic and Steepman a full season to get up to speed, didn't it? But yeah. It is a bit sad. I think the moment of horror that will stay with me from this season is realizing that yes, we really were getting an American announcer on the mic for the Tampa Bay takeover, which is the biggest sales and marketing dude decision ever. I think it was just like it felt like I was at a village fete and someone was about to announce the prize for the biggest marrow or something. It had no place, and I know you liked it, Michael, but it had no.
I liked it, and I met him. And he's a lovely guy. And you know what? He was put in that situation and just did the best possible job.
Oh yeah, don't blame the man, blame the idea.
Well, do something different. More of an issue I have is this weird bell thing they've started doing at Carrow Road, where they ring the bell and they say, that's the bell to say that the players are now coming out in 5 minutes, and then there's another bell 30 seconds. It's like it's not the bell. Someone's pressing a button of a bell sound effect. I mean, I presume. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a bit like, oh, there's the bell.
Well, and while we're...
You know what? Then there is a bit of me that does quite like that and sees what they're trying to do. So now I feel bad because there's a bit of me that does like it. I'd have probably liked it as a fan. Oh, I don't know. I've lost my head. It's been such a long season. I don't know what to do anymore.
While we're on that, not you having an impending breakdown, but the routine before the game. I must have said this before, but why are we cramming on the Ball City in when the players are standing waiting to kick off? I find that really weird. Like that should be the highlight before the game, and we've got to cram in naming the teams and then the green, yellow army, white stripes thing, which I don't really enjoy. I don't that to me that's got to change for next season if anyone's listening, which they're probably not.
Well, it depends what they want to hear, I find, as to whether they are listening or not. I think we've done all our awards. Zoe did message with her favourite highlights of the season, I think. Let me see if I can find them.
While you're doing that, Michael, I will just pull up Nolly's, as he's done quite a few. Most blatant trade description axe breaker, Dean Smith. Bit cruel, but maybe not wholly inaccurate. Longest Christmas celebration, Steve. I think another reference to my tree. Most blatant plug, Michael. I've written about that on The Athletic Bailey. And then one more for the record. He also says goal of the season. Tampa time back heel Monday. That was pretty extraordinary, actually.
It was indeed. And also, by far and away, a better game than the actual game. Which I know, it struck me that I was looking across and the noise from the crowd. I was like, holy moly, have we got to this point? So anyway.
We got to that point way earlier in the season.
That's all I'm going for at the moment. That's why I renewed my season ticket.
I think what happened is Tampa time raised its game. It was the last thing that Norwich needed was Tampa time to get good. They could have just been as bad as each other. I'm being harsh. I'm being very harsh. I love Tampa time. It's fun. Zoe says my favorite podcast moments were must good performance, which was a new term coined by Mr. Brigham. And I agree. We didn't get many must good performances, did we? Oh dear.
We do need a must
good job
pre-season now, though, don't we?
Well, that's indeed well said, and indeed what you actually wrote in reply on the WhatsApp chat. NCFC numbers forcing Pukki to leave. Yes, Zoe's blaming you, Steve.
And I've doubled down on that one on this podcast as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Michael talking to himself for 15 minutes while he tried to find his script. Oh yeah, that did happen once.
Yeah.
That's the joys of
brilliant.
The joys of watching this podcast recorded live. So there we go. Thank you, Zoe. It's been great having her.
Can I chuck in some other awards as well?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just a couple of others. I guess Norwich Fashion Week has to go to Alan Russell for his sudden transformation from tracksuit wearing, coach in the background, to wearing a very well, what is the word, coiffured suit for his one appearance in the dugout, or no, 2 appearances in the dugout.
Next to Steve Weaver, who didn't make the same effort.
No, he went full Martin O'Neill, Paul Lambert. Steve Weaver didn't he?
I think it's the only clothes he owns.
Another one was another own goal was our chief finance director. Slagging off the fans in his Q&A through the club channels, which was somehow A, he said it, B, was vetted, and C, put out. Quite extraordinary. But one good thing was, and they won an award for this, was the kit launch at the start of the season, which was very excellent. And a reminder that our club still gets a lot of things right that a lot of other clubs do not. And that was a very worthy winner of an award recently, I believe. Just to end on a positive note there.
and that was a wonderful campaign, and it came from a really good place as well. The kits have all been amazing. Well, I don't know about the third kit, but certainly the home and away kits have been awesome. The other thing about that video that sort of went a bit under the radar with Anthony Richins was that someone accused them of saying that the season tickets were the 3rd most expensive in the championship, and he made the point, no, we are the most expensive season ticket in the championship. Just to make it doubly clear that the difference between the price of the football and the product on show was that bit greater. I don't think another professional football club would have clarified that. I can't think of anyone who would have clarified that.
All about accuracy.
No. All about accuracy and honesty and transparency. So fair play.
And one more,
Steve,
a Liz Truss award prompted by Steve's depressing tweet after the game that this is the first time in our history that we've gone without scoring in 5 successive games at Carrow Road. And so I just had a little look, and we've currently gone 29 more days without goals at Carrow Road than Liz Truss was Prime Minister.
Tremendous.
Only that, but it is going to be another. It is going to be another 3 months before there's a goal. I don't know if there's pre-season friendly. I don't know what the plan is, but yeah.
Just a couple of quick awards from me as well. The quote of the year award, or prescient quote of the year award, goes to, I think, Dean Smith for "We'll see a different animal after the World Cup," which we did. It was a slightly more benign animal than whatever we were before. And also, I think the breakthrough of the year, just a quick mention, was I think it's worth mentioning the women's team playing at Carrow Road. I think that was
amazing.
Scored 5 more goals than we have in the last however many days it was, Dan. So yeah, and I think a genuine step forward that. So that's nice.
And Liam Gibbs won Young Player of the Season award, which is well deserved as well. He's done well this year. Although he did celebrate it by shanking a perfectly straightforward pass out play on Monday, which was quite amusing. There we go. Well, that's amazing. Steve, did you go through? I think you were going to have a look at some of our predictions from the start.
Do you want me to rattle through them as we're an hour in?
We've still got Ryan's quiz to go.
We do, yes, yeah. So
end of the season party, it'll always go on longer than it should.
Yeah. Like every good wake. So I thought I'd just quickly go back and have a listen to our first podcast when I think you even said, Michael, look forward to listening back to these. Someone remind me. So I have. So on that podcast were me, Michael, obviously, Hodgie and Zoe. Zoe went fairly kind of route one with player of the season for Pukki. That said he'd also get to 100 goals, so fell a little bit short. And we would finish first, and England would win the World Cup. So I would say a typically positive Zoe outlook on that one.
Amazing.
Believe me, they get a lot worse than that. Hodgie, I think, deserves some credit for this because he said, and I'd forgotten this, although I'm sure he'll be the first to remember, Gabriel Sara for player of the season.
Did he? Good shout.
Although,
he was still enamoured by his shoulders, I think.
Yeah, he did say for the upper body alone. So I think he was basing it more on his physique than his playing ability.
He literally gave it to him for his shoulders.
He said we'd finish fourth and play Alex Neil's Sunderland in the playoffs.
Impossible.
Sunderland got there. So we'll give him that, but it wasn't Alex Neil's Sunderland. I unfortunately rated Sarah as the next Vadis Adija Afoe. Which seems to be quite a long way off the mark at this point. I also said, I did say no one was jumping off the page in terms of quality in the Championship, that it would be a low quality season, but I picked Borough and Watford to do well. I said that Michael, West Brom's fans would be the ones that you most wound up this season.
I've only wound up Norwich fans this season.
Okay. So I was wrong on that then.
Yeah. No, the problem is Norwich haven't been good enough to wind anyone up, I think. That's the problem.
No, that's true. I haven't beaten anyone, have we? And I said we'd come fourth, and I'm going to brace myself for this one. Todd Cantwell would be player of the season. So
at Rangers. Really well there.
Yeah, didn't say which club. Michael, you said Andy Omabamidele could have a massive season. It didn't quite happen.
He could have done.
You said, yes, you were very non-committal. You said we might finish fifth. I think you were the closest of all of us.
Never believed it.
And when pushed, you said Grant Hanley would be player of the season because you could see it being someone at the back end of the pitch because we wouldn't do much going forward. Did
I say that? Oh, I've nailed that, to be fair.
Well, you've nailed the second
good at the back. Yeah, we weren't good at the back either. Ryan's overall assessment of the season, because both he and Dan left voice note messages, he said that we would have a fast start, an abysmal winter. So pretty good, actually, up to that point. But then said we'd finish in the playoffs and get knocked out by someone surprising like Hull or Wigan. So
Blackpool.
Yeah.
Too surprising.
Yes, but then Coventry would have been quite surprising, I suppose. Then it went really downhill for him, I'm afraid. As has been referenced many times, Dan El-Sanani, player of the season shout. Didn't quite happen for him, did it? And he also said that all of our strikers, Pukki, Sargent, Eder and Hugill, would get goal contributions, i.e. goals plus assists of more than 10. So half right. Pukki and Sargent made it. I think Eder and Jordan Hugill fell short. And then we come to Dan's 11 predictions, which I will get through quickly.
Please do.
Some of these were said in jest.
You don't have to go through them at all, actually.
I don't think you come out of it terribly. You did say Norwich would be in a three-way fight for the title with Borough and Blackburn, but you did add the caveat if Isaac Hayden and Gabriel Sara stay fit. Which obviously in one case didn't happen. So who knows? Maybe we would have done. You specifically said Sunderland wouldn't be dark horses, but they finished in the playoffs. But you redeemed yourself by saying Swansea would play lovely football and finish mid-table, which I don't think you could have been any more accurate with that. Yeah. So that's good. You claimed that Wigan, Preston, Burnley would merge to cut down on the number of northwest trips that we'd have to make.
Blackburn out of that.
You did leave Blackburn out of that. Yeah, it was just those three that you took issue with. And that Pukki would be less sad and be in and around the 30 goal mark, and neither of which really happened. Sarah would be a fan favourite, and that the Athletic would get tired of Michael Bailey asking for all expenses trips to Brazil to do some background on Sarah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Both correct.
And
Sargent would be sent on loan to Rotherham in January, which I think you referenced that yourself, and that Paul
Hugill did. So
yeah, that's true. It was Hugill, wasn't it? and that Paul Warne would keep Rotherham up and Sargent would become a cult hero. So if you just change the names to whoever their manager is, Matt Taylor and Hugo, that would work.
Yeah.
But I've sort of saved my two favourites for last. And Elmer Bamadelli would reap the benefit of our new set piece coach, who's not even our current set piece coach, and break the record for centre half goals this season.
Funny, I just noted that. I just remembered it and noted that down just to remind you. But no, you brought it up instead.
And I think he scored one, but it was from a set piece, in fairness. And that Todd Cantwell would dye his hair green and yellow and hit double figures for the season, brackets, as will Rashica.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hope I pulled
figures for the season.
I hope
I may have done.
Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, for a different club.
Anyway,
wow.
I think that just goes to show if us bloody experts can't get it right, what hope is there for anyone?
Same time again next season.
Yes, please.
With the predictions. And thank you for going to the trouble to digging them all out, Steve. That was brilliant.
But luckily, we did them all in one pod, which helped.
This is true. We've done that. Let's get on finally to Ryan's quiz. So Ryan has done us a quick quiz. It's not a long one. Just brace yourselves. It won't take long. Let me hand you over to our quiz master, Ryan. Yes, there he is. Here he comes.
Hello, Michael, Steve, and Dan. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast this season. It's been a genuine pleasure, even if the football hasn't. So there's that. But I'm going to play us out with one last quiz for this year. Now, this is a game of Linky, and the premise is simple. I'm going to give you 3 clues, which you will use to work out 3 separate Norwich City players. But the winner of the quiz will be the first person to guess what connects these 3 players. So without further ado, here they are. Okay, question 1. Former City forward who was arguably the best Christmas present Norwich City have received this century. Former City forward who was arguably the best Christmas present Norwich City have received this century.
Now, it struck me we probably should have done this at the start of the podcast, and then we could have revealed the answers at the end. But let's just brush over that, shall we? I think that one's not too bad. I think getting the names is all right. It's the connection.
Have you already listened to this, Michael?
Well, yes, because I had to prepare the podcast, so I do know the answers.
Okay,
that does give you a slight advantage, I'd say.
But I'm not competing.
Oh, it's just me versus Dan then. This is a head-to-head.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. So that was number 1. Let's get number 2. Come back, please, Ryan. There he is. Which it'll be this one, yes.
Okay, question 2. Former City striker, now big brain thinker, who is the only player to have scored a hat-trick in all 4 English divisions, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and for his country.
There we go. I don't think that's too bad. Let's get on to number 3.
Third and finally, former City captain, whose career has taken him from Tyres to Thailand to the Premier League. Former City captain whose career has taken him from Tyres to Thailand to the Premier League.
There we go. So there's 3 players you should have, and then there is a link between all 3. I think the link is hard to get, but I think I think the players are all there.
Do you both think? One.
Are you?
Tyres? Yeah, I feel like I should know it. In that order: Tyres, then Thailand. No, hang on. Yeah, okay.
To give you a clue, I've got a pretty massive head start for the third one, Steve.
Have you got all 3, Dan?
Yes. Well, I think I have. Yeah, I think I have.
Okay. Well, Steve, do you want to give us? Do you think you've got the connection, or do you want to work on that a little bit?
I mean, I've got a very sort of loose, pretty tame connection. Should we? Well. No, I don't know.
We haven't got anything else to do, which is why we should have come back to the end. That's my fault, but that's fine. Have we got any
connection?
No, I mean they're all sort of strikers, but that's not going to be right.
Okay, let's. I'll just have a look at some. Well, there's some questions that were starred. Let me see if I can. Alfie Green. I'll leave these two to think about those things. Alfie Green, will Norwich sign any good players this summer? Alfie, that's always the favourite part of a summer transfer window. Who knows? You can think they might be good and then they're not. You can think they're going to be rubbish and then they're really good. It's really hard to say. There are so many side issues that come into good recruitment, which does make it very difficult and why you will never have a 100% success rate. I hope that... So, for example, Ashley Barnes, the guy will be old when he comes in. So that's, can be a negative. But of course, if he's then fit all the time and does what he can do and provides some real qualities like leadership and experience at the club and David Wagner feel that they're missing, then it could be a good signing if he doesn't play much.
Are we allowed to cut across you if we think we've got a link? Which I think I've just done.
Let me answer one. Well, if you think you're there, Dan, let Dan work on it a bit, unless if there's anything else to ask. He says, "Oh no, I think we're pretty covered there." Thank you for all your comments and questions, everyone. Good fun. Right, go on then.
Yeah.
So you think you've got a connection, Dan? Do you think you've got a connection?
No. Should I give the 3 players? And then Steve, you give the connection.
So you look like you're contributing. Yeah,
my connection may be wrong. So yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Dan, you do the first one. Who do you think the first player was?
So that's Hux, Earnshaw, and Holty.
Okay, gone with all 3. That's fine. And then Steve, what do you think they were the 3 players you had, I presume? Steve?
They were the 3 players that I had, albeit with some help from Dan. They've all played for Forest, I think, as well as us. Is that right?
That's the only one I could think of,
yeah.
but I didn't think that was probably...
Okay.
Well, I suppose with these things, there's maybe more than one connection, but you have to get the right connection.
Okay.
I think now is the time to hand over to Ryan with the answers. There he is. Just look at his face.
Okay, so the answers now. They are, of course, the first answer, Darren Huckabee. Number 2, Robert Earnshaw. And number 3, Grant Holt. And I'm sure you guys got those without a problem. But the connection between the 3 of them is they are forwards who all scored on their final Norwich City appearance, but they did so away from Carrow Road. So even though Teemu Pukki didn't score on Monday, at least he got the send-off his career deserved, whilst those guys didn't, sadly. Thank you so much, guys, for a wonderful season of On The Ball. Here's to the next one. Ta-ra!
Brilliant work, Ryan. I didn't get that. It's a fine link. I just love this image of him so much, which I will put up on social media, because I appreciate if you're listening to this podcast, you can't see the image of Ryan that is currently on the live stream. So there we go. I'll do that. I'll put that on socials.
I should just add for a slight clarification is that Holty didn't play in Thailand. He played in Singapore. Just anyone was going to go away and Google it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, we've got all summer to stew on that, just like the Blackpool performance. So Ryan, thank you so much for the quiz. Guys, well done for taking it on.
And what a fitting tribute to this season that Dan and I made a complete Horlicks of getting the answer right.
No comment. Okay, lastly, I've got here, for the podcast for the whole season, the one thing that we want come the start of next season. What do we want? What do we want it? And when do we want it? At the start of the season? Anything? What would I like?
Like before a ball is kicked.
Yeah, I guess so. Some hope.
Yeah, your classic hope, isn't it? Some fun new signings, hope. A couple we won't have heard of, a couple of can I swear? A couple of shit houses like Ashley Barnes.
Yeah, you just did.
We've missed that. We've missed that sort of personality of I should have said personality, not the
yes, yeah. It's too late now.
Yeah, just and inevitably we always enter seasons full of hope, but hopefully. We'll see a team that's taking shape and looks like they're going to be fun to follow again.
Yeah,
lovely.
I think that a kind of a coherent strategy and a sign that we know what we're doing. A good pre-season would be good. Maybe a nice kit or two as well. Everyone likes a good kit launch, don't they? Yeah, that'll do me. And obviously the promise of another season of On the Ball podcast, because what's the point of following this club at all if the podcast doesn't exist, right?
Exactly. Well, the public will need to
Silence.
Get in touch. Public, tell us how much you love this podcast and that it has to carry on.
Well, let me lead you on to Dan S, whose first name and surname are suspiciously a combination of mine and Dan's, who says, "Thank you for this season. Your podcast has been a constant bright spark in a dark season. Thanks all." Smiley face. So there's some sickening self-promotion that I've just pulled up there. But yeah, I thought it might be nice to end on a high, right?
Much like a bright spark in a dark cave filled with gunpowder. Thank you. That is lovely to hear. Maybe we continue on. But I think much like Teemu Pukki, a summer of doing nothing sounds lovely. I mean, obviously, I won't be doing nothing, but maybe not doing a podcast. Oh, we can address that then after our lovely break. That is it then, isn't it? For another season of On the Ball. We're done. The Norwich City podcast that is already looking forward to the next August meltdown. That's not the tone. That is not the tone, Michael. Sort yourself out. A big thank you to our guests this evening, which was just the three of us, but that's fine. Dan, thank you so much for this and all of your contributions.
Thanks so much, Michael. Been a real pleasure all season.
It has indeed. Steve, I couldn't do it without you. Thank you for the numbers.
Thank you, Michael. I couldn't do it without you. Thanks for the words.
Oh, that did actually work. Thank you. And I should say thank you to every single guest that we've had on. I can't think of anyone who wasn't awesome. The messages, the comments, and the interaction we've had from everyone watching and getting involved, that is obviously really important and makes it all worthwhile. We have had a blast on this podcast this season, which does truly make it better than the actual football. That will be the last dig, maybe. Have a brilliant, inspiring summer. And yes, I'm also talking to Norwich City at this point. And here's to the return of the championship shenanigans come August. Until then, don't forget the signed shirt and ball auction close at 11:59, which is almost the end of this podcast. That's UK time on Tuesday. And of course, never mind the danger. And we are done. And I guess there's still a little bit of time of the Real Madrid and Manchester City game if we get away now to watch it. Is it? I didn't know
20
that.
20 minutes left.
Spoiler alert. 20 minutes. That's loads of time. Loads of people still online. So thank you. We had a load of people watching tonight, which was great.
Oh, we're still live?
Oh, sorry.
Did not
What?
Did not realise we were still live, even though this.
Yeah, we are still live, Dan. Yeah.
We're gonna say shit. We're gonna say shit house again, Dan.
Oh, stop it. Yes, but so thank you to everyone for watching these streams. I think they bring something really fun to the podcast. And yeah, it's been loads of fun. Thank you to these guys and all the guys who've been on. It's been loads of fun. Happy days. We should all wave now, shouldn't we? Yeah.
Bye. See you in August.
It's been a long time, so I think we need to wrap up quickly. See you in August, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a brilliant summer. On the Ball City. All the good stuff. Bye. Don't boo.